Happy May 4th, everybody. I figure with it being Star Wars Day, it would be a fun time to go through and rank the Star Wars films and shows. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I've not seen every show. I've seen all the movies, but the shows I've not seen all of. There's just a lot. Disney's really pumping this thing out. I don't know, I grew up with Star Wars, and I've just always kind of loved the franchise, the universe of like endless possibilities, and just how grandiose everything is, mixed with just the story baseline of the original trilogy just being a great hero's journey overtaking, evil and whatnot. I love it. I love Star Wars. It's when you think about like space and like sci-fi or like space operas, like it's Star Wars. That's the one everybody talks about. So I thought it'd be fun to do a tier list of all the Star Wars stuff today. All right, so up first we have Acolytes, which I don't know anything about, or The Acolyte. I guess it's not out yet, so kind of pointless that that's here, so we're not not throwing that one in. Star Wars Episode 1. So we have Grandmaster, Council Member, Master, Knight, Padawan, and Youngling. I think Star Wars Episode 1's a Padawan. Like, it's not that great, you know what I mean? I grew up with this, so I think I have a little bit of like nostalgia with it, where like this came out when I was a kid in theaters, and I've watched it as an adult several times. And out of the prequels, it's probably one of my more favorites, if that makes sense, out of the three. There's something about one, Darth Maul is just a wicked cool villain, and I honestly think Battle of the Fates is one of the best songs in all of Star Wars. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan are both fun. There's some really good scenes here, but there's also like Jar Jar Binks, I think the pod racing thing is really cool, but I also know like I'm just kind of in that niche for that, so I think Episode 1 can go into... I'm trying to think of, like, what would this be, like, rating-wise, like, out of 10 or whatever? Maybe Knight. I don't know. I have a soft spot for Episode 1. Not so much for Episode 2. That I honestly think Episode 2 is one of the worst in Star Wars. Like, yeah, you have the Battle of Geonosis at the end. Geonosis. I can never say that right. And, like, there's some other cool things. I think the clone idea is really cool. And that's the thing, like, when you think about these prequels trilogy of Star Wars, like, on paper, there is a really, really cool backbone here. There's a really cool overall idea for a story. It's just not executed very well. So, I think we can throw that into Youngling. Star Wars Clone Wars. I've only seen about half of Clone Wars, the show. I haven't finished it yet. I wouldn't mind just kind of restarting it. I got to about season 4. So I wouldn't mind restarting it, I guess, and seeing where it goes, but I think I want to throw it in with Knight for right now, for what I've seen. I've heard the last couple seasons are really good, so at some point I'm going to get around to finishing it. The Clone Wars movie, though, I don't think is that good, the animated movie. For what I remember of it, it's just kind of mid. Star Wars Episode 3, I think can honestly can go into Master. I think Episode 3 is the best of the prequel trilogy. I like it. It kind of is a nice conclusion, and it doesn't really have the problems that 1 and 2 has, at least in my opinion, you know what I mean? Like, the ending battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin is really strong. There's some really good moments. I think General Grievous is cool, but they kind of punked him out a little bit. I just realized too, Gennady Tartakovsky, the Dexter's Lab Samurai Jack, his Clone Wars isn't on here, which would go up into Council Member. It would go up into Council Member. It'd go up into Council Member. If you've not seen that Star Wars Clone Wars, it is wicked cool because it's done in like his art style. I've not rated this. That's weird. It's only a couple episodes. It's not very long, and they're all like short episodes. But it is cool. General Grievous is really awesome. There's a really cool scene where General Grievous takes out like a bunch of Jedis. No spoilers. I guess I haven't rated this, but it's an 8 out of 10. Yeah, really good stuff. But yeah, back to Episode 3. I think this is just a pretty strong movie on its own. Like, it's not as good as some of the other entries, but especially in the prequels and overall, like, it's a really good conclusion to the trilogy of the prequels, and it's good. The Bad Batch I've not seen yet. I want to. My cousin told me about it. He said it's really good. It's just like the shows Disney are pumping out so many. I'm not a big like sit down and watch TV shows kind of guy, so I need to like start burning through some of these to get caught up, because Star Wars is probably the one universe where I actually wouldn't mind trying to keep up with like a lot of the side series, as long as they're good. Obi-Wan, I think, is a knight. I liked Obi-Wan overall, but it felt a little elongated, and it felt not really pointless, but like also why? You know what I mean? Like, it was good, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It just felt a little purposeless, if that makes sense. Solo, I think, is Padawan. So Solo, like, is not a bad movie, I don't think. It's not a bad little, like, space romp, but it is, without a doubt, the most unnecessary thing Star Wars has put out. Because we did not need to see the Han Solo origin story. There's so many different characters. There's so many different things in the universe. If they could divert away from the Skywalker saga, they could divert away from always having to tie in to these 9-movie timeline, Star Wars would be so much better off for doing so. It's that constant like, hey, we got to tie back to this character and stuff like that, that gets a little tiring with Star Wars, because Star Wars is a ginormous universe that you could expand and play through, and they just want to narrow it down into this little thing, and it's kind of annoying. But Solo, like, as its own, is not a bad little like space romp, but it's one that's kind of pointless. Star Wars Rebels I've never seen, because I want to finish Clone Wars before I jump into Rebels. Andor, I've seen half of Andor and I haven't finished it. I was not digging it. I'm going to put it in Padawan because it could get better, could go up, you know. But for right now, I've seen 4 episodes. Hold on. So I am on The Axe Forgets. So episode 5. I'm on episode 5 out of 12. I don't know, man. I wasn't getting into it, and I just haven't returned to it yet. I will come back to finish it. I just haven't yet. So for right now, I think it's going to be in Padawan. Which is weird, because like I know everybody's like, I loved Andor. Like, Andor has been like one of the best of the Disney shows, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's because I binged through a couple, like I binged through Boba Fett and then Obi-Wan, then jumped right into Andor, so maybe I was just like a little bit, you know, spent. So I'll come back to Andor. Rogue One, I think, is council member. I actually think Rogue One is probably the best of the Disney released films. I think it's really fun. It's a fun spin-off that I think ties nicely into the Skywalker saga, which I know I just complained about, right? I just complained about them always tying it back. But it's a fun story that lends itself to the Skywalker saga. It's a nice little, hey, yeah, this ties into the Skywalker saga. Yeah, I might be tired of that. But this film takes a moment in that film's history and showcases other characters than the Skywalker characters. And I think it works pretty well. I think it's really fun. I think the ending scene is really good. For me, it's been probably my favorite of the Disney released movies. I just really enjoy Rogue One. Wouldn't actually mind rewatching it. I've seen it twice in theaters, and I've watched it once since I've owned it, but I've not watched it since, and it's been a little while. So maybe I'll have to pop in Rogue One. Like I said, really liked it. And I also maybe have a little bit of bias because the Rogue One DLC in Star Wars Battlefront was super awesome too. All right, so we have the OG trilogy, and can we just like, there, you know what I mean? Star Wars A New Hope is my favorite Star Wars. It's like, yeah, Empire Strikes Back is great, and it's very close to A New Hope, but A New Hope is my favorite, like, by far. A New Hope is a great standalone story. It's a great entry into the entire universe. There's a lot going on that it does expertly to inform you where you're at in the story without really sitting a lot of time aside. You're jumped right into it. Yeah, you have the classic scroll that catches you up to speed, but you're jumped right into the middle of it, and it never really lets up. That classic story of becoming a Jedi and everything, it's just awesome. I love A New Hope. It's my favorite. Always has been my favorite. And then Empire Strikes Back is about as perfect as a sequel as you can get. I think Empire Strikes Back is absolutely great as well. Both of them are 10 out of 10s for me, dog. And Return of the Jedi is like an 8.5 or a 9. Like, I would put it above Rogue One just because I think it's really fun. It's a great conclusion. The Battle of Endor is really, 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 really fun. The Ewoks are cute. not really necessary, but they are fun to watch take down this this advanced warfare and this kind of like primal against, you know, advanced, I don't know what other word I'm trying to find here, is really fun to watch. It's really fun to watch on screen. So, yeah, for me, obviously the original 3 are my favorite when it comes to Star Wars, period. I think a lot of people would say that too. But, yeah, these 2 are by far my favorite, especially New Hope. If I sound a little weird today, that's because I am so stuffed up. My sinuses are killing me, dog. The Mandalorian, I think, is probably at master level. It could be a council member. I think Season 1 is fantastic. Season 2... was good. I don't think it was as good as Season 1, and I've not watched Season 3 yet, although I've not heard great things about Season 3, which makes me a little concerned. I'm going to leave it at Master. I would put it above Episode 3 from the 2 seasons I've seen, but I wouldn't quite throw it up into here yet. I do think Mandalorian, though, the first 2 seasons are great. Like I said, I want to see Season 3. I'll watch it sometime soonish, but for right now, based off of Season 1 and 2, that's where I'd put it. And hopefully Season 3 isn't as bad as a lot of people seem to say it is. Star Wars Boba Fett, I think, is a knight. I would probably put it as one of the highest. Like, I guess I can rearrange these to be kind of in order of my opinion. That's probably... I don't know. I kind of like the seasons I saw of Clone Wars better than Obi-Wan, but that's probably what I would do here. Down here, I would put Solo above the Clone Wars movie. And then... I don't know, like I said, I just wasn't into Andor that much. Probably just leave it there. But Boba Fett, I liked it, but I have huge issues with it. So first off, like, a lot of the Boba Fett stuff was pretty cool. I like the whole Boba Fett Sopranos angle. I think it's kind of fun. There's a scene with the Rancor that they didn't get rid of the blue screen. You can see blue screen in the scene, which is super sloppy. But my biggest issue with the Boba Fett is there's literally 2 episodes of The Mandalorian just crammed in here, disguised as the Boba Fett show, where Boba Fett's at the beginning of one episode and then not the rest. Then the next episode, he's at the end of it. So there's literally 2 episodes that follows The Mandalorian. That was like, why was this not just in The Mandalorian? Like, why was this tied to the Book of Boba at all? Like, it was like at all. Like, it was so stupid. It would have been better to just trim those out and then that be like the first couple episodes of The Mandalorian, probably. But I do think the ending, the last episode of Book of Boba, is awesome. Especially if like you grew up as a fan of Boba. Like I grew up watching, reading the comics and stuff of Boba Fett. So I've always been a huge fan of Boba. So like, yeah, he kind of gets his Boba moment, you know what I mean? And it's awesome. Ahsoka is not out yet. Star Wars Force Awakens, I think can go into Master. I would put it above Episode 3, probably not above Mandalorian. It's good. I remember when I first watched The Force Awakens, that childhood in me reinvigorated, and I was like, oh man, I love this. Like, this is so good, right? And it's like, you got to relive your childhood a little bit. We saw it opening night, opening showing, and the crowd was just packed in there. Everybody was going nuts when the scroll started, and it was like a sweet viewing experience. I rated this a 9. No. It's probably more of like a 7.5 now. Yeah, that seems about right. And it is good. This is a good movie. It is a New Hope just retreaded, which is kind of disappointing when you think about it, but it sets up a lot of really cool stuff. Rey is interesting. Finn is pretty cool. Kylo Ren is a really cool villain, has good ties. There's moments that happen in this film that I think are fantastic, which gets squandered. We'll talk about here in a minute, but there is things about Episode 7 that I think is really well done, and I do really like it. Yeah, it is a bit of a you know what? I'll be nice. I'll give it an 8. It is a bit of a retread of Episode 4, but it does it in a way that I think could set up for a really good universe that, like I said, unfortunately gets squandered. That I actually think, because of the squandering, kind of hurts this movie a little bit. But I do think this is a good movie. Like, overall, it's a good entry into the series. And yeah, it's like probably a 7.5 or an 8. I'm being friendly because it's Star Wars, so I give it an 8, but it's probably closer to a 7.5. The Last Jedi, I think, is Padawan, not quite youngling. Last Jedi has some really, really good moments. You gave it a 6. Fair. It has some really, really good moments in it, but I also think it has some really, really bad moments in it too, where like there's a scene with Carrie Fisher that I think is god awful and a waste of potential. I think the whole thing with Mark Hamill is pretty silly. I like the scene with Snoke, although if you look at the background choreography, it's really sloppy. But like, it almost feels like Rian Johnson, when he got a hold of this, just didn't care what was set up and was like, I'm just going to do things. And I unfortunately think because of that, and because you had 2 different directors directing these 3 movies, that unfortunately you get a sloppy mix of intention and direction, I guess. So that unfortunately kind of makes the whole thing fall apart. I think The Last Jedi makes the entire trilogy fall apart. I think there's some really good things, like I said, but I do think it kind of makes it fall apart there. And then I actually think Rise of the Skywalker is maybe... I gave it a 6. Oh, come on. No, it's at least a 5. I'm being too friendly here. Star Wars, I love it, so I'm just like, free pass. I do think Rise of the Skywalker, it's actually one of my first out of 10 reviews. It might be my first out of 10 review. It is one that has aged like spoiled milk to me. It is just, the more I think about it, the more like I look back on it, the more I don't like it. And that's kind of upsetting. And to me, I don't know if I'd put it, these 2 are the worst 2. I don't know which one I like least. I probably like episode 2 worse than episode 9. Attack of the Clones probably less than Rise of the Skywalker. So here's one thing to sidetrack real quick. A lot of people is like, oh, the prequel trilogy is not that bad. After the Clone Wars show came out. It's like the Clone Wars show is pretty good, and it's like bolstering up, especially episode 2. It's kind of bolstering episode 2 and developing Anakin and Obi-Wan's connection even further to go into episode 3. So yeah, you could say like Clone Wars, the show, actually did a lot to like bolster up the prequel trilogy. But back to Rise of the Skywalker. The Rise of the Skywalker unfortunately spends its 2 hours and 21 minutes trying to retcon The Last Jedi. Trying to, I guess retcon's probably not the right word, try to correct The Last Jedi. Try to smooth things over from The Last Jedi, and it fails at like everything. It's directionless. The way it goes toward the end is really, really, really stupid. There are some good moments. There are some good visuals. But yeah, the way the film decides to run to the end is really stupid. Like really, really stupid. And I remember even being in theaters being like, really? And it's like they just couldn't help themselves, you know? It's like, you have to do this. And it's like, you don't have to do this way. Like, you can do things differently. I've seen it the one time in theaters, and I've never cared to rewatch it. I still don't own it on Blu-ray. It's the only Star Wars movie that I don't own physically. So that should say something, I guess, right? I've never cared to buy it. I will at some point. I'm just trying to find it cheap. But yeah, it's just, there's something about this one that is just like wickedly disappointing. And they could have done so much more with it. And it's just a squandered opportunity. Is really what it boils down to. Just squandered opportunity. And yeah, I don't think it's very good. I'm still going to give it a 5 to be nice. I think I gave Clone Wars... What did I give Clone Wars? I think I gave Clone Wars a 4. Okay. It's Attack of the Clones. I always forget that. It's actually Attack of the Clones. Okay, I gave it a 4. Yeah. Alright, fine. I'd give this one a 5. This a 4.5. Resistance I've not seen. Actually, the rest of these I've not seen. Resistance I've not seen. This Skeleton Crew's not out yet. I think Visions is. I don't think whatever this one is out yet. Tales of the Jedi I don't think is out yet. And I don't know yet. And then there's another poster for Solo, which I'm assuming is supposed to be the Lando show. But don't know. But that's going to be my list for now. These are, you know, some of these shows I do want to sit down and watch. The Ahsoka show I'm kind of interested in. Probably be checking that one out whenever it comes out. The Bad Batch, like I said, I really want to see The Bad Batch. My cousin's been talking this one up. It seems really cool. So at some point I'll watch it. But for right now, this is my Star Wars tier list. And, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. I think this is pretty fair. Star Wars is just a trilogy that I love. Me and my friends kind of all love it. We're all kind of big Star Wars nerds. And it's fun to just, I don't know, have something like Star Wars exist. You know what I mean? Like, it's really cool. It's a cool universe. There's a lot to it. And yeah, happy May 4th. That's my Star Wars list. I don't know what I was going to say there. Hey, if you made it this far to the end of the video, maybe consider subscribing if you already haven't. Turning on notifications will let you know anytime I upload videos or go live. Also, if you want to support the channel even further, you can consider becoming a member. That's all I got for you. Peace.